person in the receiver role may not be good at containment, may be highly reactive.
Welcome to Imago Therapy with the Masters. I'm John Carlson, and our guest today is Sunny Shulkin. Welcome, Sunny.
Thank you.
Really glad that you're with us today, and would like to have you talk about just what does Imago mean to you?
At a personal level, it means a lot. I had been married for 35 years, and I'm trying to describe a relationship that's 35 years old, where he does his thing and she does her thing, and they get together on Thanksgiving and holidays. They look like a family.
Wow.
They just don't feel like one.
Very parallel, huh?
Very parallel. And a client of mine who I thought had a fabulous marriage and was just seeing me for child-raising issues said to me, my husband and I just came back from an Imago weekend, and it's really changed my life. And I stared at her, thinking to myself, lady, I would give a left arm for your marriage. So I grabbed Mark by the neck, and I took him to New York City, where Harville was doing the Getting the Love You Want workshop. And it was in that weekend, John, that I got the sense of knowing Mark in a way that I hadn't allowed myself to know him before. And that's one of the things that I love about Imago, is that I, like perhaps others, are defended from connection. That to live or to know the differing world of the other feels too threatening. Because in case they're right, what does that say about me? Does that annihilate me? Does that make me wrong? The idea that two worlds could be equally right had never been presented to me before, that I could hold on to my world and yet welcome his.
And be together, be a couple.
Yeah. And that's, given that I was doing marriage therapy, I wondered, what was I doing now? Somebody tell me what I was doing.
Yeah, it seems like every Imago therapist that I've met really got into Imago almost by fixing their own relationship. Is that pretty standard, that people, for me, I learned how to do therapy without ever having to look at my own relationship.
Yeah, I was pretty pissed about that. That Harville was non-yielding on this, and rightfully so. And I fought it, kicking and screaming. In fact, I had turned down a program because they wanted me to get into therapy with Mark. And I said, this isn't about my marriage. Arrogance to the end.
Hello. Okay. Well, just what is Imago therapy for you? I mean, what's your version? I mean, it seems like everyone has a little different take on it.
Yeah, isn't that wonderful? That we're all looking at the nature of human nature and the nature of relationship, and that everybody is going to take what they need. For me, Imago theory is about addressing two fundamental issues that need to be in the life of a couple to sustain itself over time, and that is both safety and aliveness. Okay. So whenever I sit with a couple, I keep those two mantras in mind. Is this safe? Is this person looking for safety? And the answer is probably yes, since human beings look for safety. Okay. Do they see themselves as a source of safety, or are they just waiting for the other to make them safe?
Oh.
And it makes sense that human beings wait for someone else to make them safe, because when we were children, that was so appropriate. We were born relatively powerless, or felt powerless, and we looked to another to create safety for us. Nowhere in the manual did it tell us that we'd ever have to grow up and discover the paradox being that as I create safety for you, I become safer myself.
Yeah. So what is the aliveness? What's that about?
The aliveness has to do with the sense of joy, the sense of being in the moment, the sense of being able to be a source of pleasure, as being able to receive pleasure.
This is therapy. This is supposed to be about problems and suffering and not about aliveness.
I know, and we actually do better at pain than we do at pleasure. And we can be fused through pain, and that's called the pain bond. And a pain bond will hold us together, but it won't be a source of joy or pleasure. It will simply hold us together. And what human beings want is to come out of that dull, normal, routinized, mechanicalized, whatever, and to really feel and experience what it's like to be a human being who's alive on the planet in connection.
So we're actually trying to take ourselves back to what we were like when we were 2 years old and we were totally alive.
It's a lot about reclaiming who we really are. And one of the problems is that in romantic love, we get that glimpse of who we really are, because we're at our best. We're safest in romantic love. I feel like I can tell you things I never told anybody before.
Right.
You call me at 2 in the morning, it's
And
not
it's
a
okay.
problem. It's not a problem.
Anytime.
So I'm easily a source of safety and aliveness for you. But the journey of marriage has a different agenda, which is to meet the needs that weren't met in childhood. And we will partner with someone who is perfectly wired to be as incapable of meeting our needs as were our original caretakers.
And does that ever go away? I mean, do you get it right eventually?
Yeah, you really do. Number one, you can stop the waiting and to discover that you really have far more choice in relationship than you did as a child. As a child, you had to wait. And to feel that powerlessness. And to have hope as your one vehicle for seeing the world and seeing the others. Hope that you're going to get something.
So then Imago really, this therapy helps people to realize that they have this choice and that
they do have a choice, that they can continue waiting. And if they become a source of safety and aliveness for another, it's possible that the other will return with the behaviors and the feelings of safety and aliveness. But even if they don't, you still get to win, because in creating safety and aliveness for you, something has to happen to me. I have to become and feel the pleasure of being a safe person on the planet. And I have to reclaim my own aliveness.
You just can't be the same, I guess, if a partner changes.
You really can't be the same if a partner changes. You can't be the same if you change.
It almost seems like this would be a lifelong journey, though, rather than something you would go to a therapist a few times for. I mean, is it something, do you look at it that way, or is it?
Well, I think it's a lifetime journey, because there are regressive pulls. But I don't think it's something that you have to be in therapy for a long time. I think that the brilliance of Imago is that it not only has a theory that speaks to the nature of human beings and the nature of relationship, but in addition to a theory, it has a methodology. And an Imago therapist has both the theory at his or her fingertips as well as the methods. The methods are meant to be taught to the couples, unlike psychoanalysis, where the therapist was the one with the brain and who knew everything that was going on, if anything was going on.
So you're going to give your...
I'm going to give them the exact tools that I have.
How will you eat? How will you survive? No,
Well,
this is a great idea.
Yeah, the tools
Empowering people.
are people have some resistance to power. That the contract from childhood was they'll be taken care of if they stay little. So giving someone power is not as simple as it may seem.
Yeah. I'm just thinking back to the old days of barrel makers, that you wouldn't let anybody else know how to make barrels, because if you did, then how would you live? How would you survive? And therapists have kept a lot of things pretty secretive, and so this is one that you give your skills away to others.
You give your skills away.
What are some of the basic skills that we're talking about here from your point of view?
Well, one of the first skills is re-imaging. Re-imaging means that there's a process in which I get to see you, not as the person that I've made up you to be. I might have made up that you're controlling, I might have made up that you're all kinds of awful things, given that you're a source of frustration to me.
Sure.
And in the re-imaging, which the process that carries the re-imaging idea is called the parent-child dialogue. And in that, I get to see the part of you that you typically don't allow me to see, or that I might not even see myself. And there's two purposes for re-imaging. One is that you get to see the various parts of the partner, not just the human being that's in front of you now, who you either love, hate, or are ambivalent about, but his or her potential, the future self, as well as his or her past self. And then freedom comes as re-imaging comes on board. The freedom is that you're really not the source of my pain, that I was in pain before I ever met you.
So we put the responsibility through this back on the self. Each of us takes responsibility for what we bring to the marriage.
I think that's so. It's responsibility, it's knowing, it's ownership, it's getting clear who you are and make sense about why I would be angry at you. I would be angry at you because you, like my childhood caretaker, don't meet my need. And I thought our contract was that you were the one in my life who was going to meet all my needs. Why would I have married you, John?
All right. So we've got the re-imaging. What else? What would be some others?
There's a process called restructuring frustration, that in Imago, we believe that the adult form of the cry is criticism. So that when you frustrate me, I may criticize you, or I may distance from you. I will do whatever I need to do in order to waken you that I am in pain, and it's your turn to step up to the plate and take care of me. And so I walk around in chronic frustration because you don't seem to get that that's your role. And we have a process called behavior change request that allows a person to state the frustration, move it back into childhood. So again, they're both reminded that that frustration really occurred around a need not being met in childhood. And move it into requests that are present day, small and doable. The purpose being small and doable is that I originally partnered with you because you couldn't do it any better than my parent. That's at the unconscious level. And if I could get you to do it, it would feel as if I were had a childhood in nirvana.
So this model really deals with thinking, and it deals with feeling, and then there's an action component as well.
There's an action component as well, and a sensing component.
The one thing you haven't mentioned is the tool, the dialogue, or is that in all of this?
Well, the dialogue is actually the foundational tool, and you'll see the dialogue emerge in all the other tools. The purpose being that what we hope for human beings is that they can learn that they can be both in connection and separate as well. It's called the differentiated self. And that happens over time in the dialogue when you discover that you're listening to the differing other and you don't die. You might feel like you're dying, but you don't really die. And it's like a steady inoculation that I get to learn that you're a differing other. And instead of that being injurious to me, I become hopefully curious that you could see the world so different than I do. And curious enough to allow my own consciousness to include yours without losing mine, and therefore expanding my awareness of the world, keeping me out of my self-absorbed little self where it's only my world. Makes sense.
Sure. So we're moving from injury to curiosity.
Yeah.
Wow. Now, when you do this work, is it always with couples? Or do you sometimes work an imago process just with an individual?
When we work with individuals, we like to work with them in a group. And the purpose for that is that we're always thinking about relationship. Human beings are always in relationship, whether they have a committed partner or not.
Oh, okay.
And when they work in a group, they are dealing with many differing others. And there will be many differing others who will mirror them, that is, visit their world. But they will be asked to visit many different worlds as well, which is somewhat different than the one-on-one therapeutic contract, in which the therapist agrees to visit the world of the client.
So there's a fundamental premise then that we're all social beings trying to fit into the social world. In a minute, we're going to watch you work with a couple who their names are John and Martha, which is and can you tell us what you were hoping to do when you met with John and Martha? And what do you think about before even going into an interview like that?
Well, what I think before is I hope I survive. But I had a chance to meet their therapist.
Oh, you did?
And she said to me that she's cut their sessions back to like quarterly or once every 6 weeks because the sessions were so repetitive. He's a weeper. And he either is angry at her for not meeting his needs or crying because his needs aren't being met. And longing to be held. And she's on overload, not getting needs met, and thinking that the only way for her to go is to get out of the relationship.
Oh, okay.
And I had a brief conversation with them, and a variety of very, hello, how are you questions. And in asking him how he was, he got talking about his business. And I began to see him as the thinker.
So this couple may look pretty healthy at first, but really they're maybe at the end. I mean, this is really a relationship in crisis.
Yeah, right. And the therapist is thinking that individual therapy is the best route to go.
For the therapist or for the...
Who can answer? That's a tougher question than I want.
because she seems frustrated with this. Well, what should our viewers look for in your work with what you were doing with them?
Right. Well, I'd love the viewers to see what a fine presentational front this woman has. Because the contract between the husband and the wife is that she's the sturdy, secure one. And he's the weak, immobilized, paralyzed one. He's the lost one. He's the sad one. And she has all the goodies. And if only she would share it, he is quite sure that he could grow and become the man that he knows he could be. So he's in the waiting position. And so I know that I don't want to put him in the role as the primary client, or in Imago's terms, the sender, the one who speaks. That I want him rising to his full manhood and being able to contain the world of the other, and to be able to see that there's more to her than this strong presentational front.
And are there any tools or strategies that you use to accomplish this that we should look for?
I call what I'm doing in this tape the seamless flow. That is, we start off in dialogue. She uses a word that catches my attention. She uses the word lost, which becomes an invitation to my ears. Follow that word. And when I follow that word, we're back in childhood. And I have him take the role of the father, her take the role of the little girl. Again, re-imaging. I want him to see that there's more to her than what he chooses to see. And to have her come out of hiding, because there's something really nice in it for her, as being seen as secure and feisty and tough. But she's losing her sense of aliveness in giving it away to him. And the contract is a poor contract, that he's weak and she's strong.
And then how do you finish that up?
And then I finish that up with requests, behavior change requests, which she makes of him, which he can deliver, which is again helping him reclaim his full manhood and helping her get comfortable with the needy part of her that he was really holding need for both of them. She was holding strength and he was holding need.
So we're going to watch him working at giving and her working at
receiving, which she'll have a tough time
Let's
doing.
watch.
Yeah, okay.